Everyone is comfortable? It's a trick question. I think to be kind and comfortable come from the same place. They go very well together. To develop kindness is also to develop comfort. To develop comfort is actually to develop kindness. How that comes to be is through this developing ability to actually be okay with yourself as a person. A whole incomplete person, not just parts of a person, but the whole thing. So that which makes up your physical experience of the body, that which makes up your psychology of the mind, that which makes up your habits, your relationships, but first one-sided, of course. We cannot go out and expect ourselves to be truly kind to another or truly comfortable with another until we have found those same qualities within oneself. And it actually doesn't take very long. And once one finds it, I think we've probably all experienced this, is that it's an ongoing developing relationship, which is really nice. So it's not all this front-end work that has to be done and then we can move on. It's actually just small little bits and pieces continuously. So we're constantly developing greater levels and depths of comfort, and we're constantly developing heights of kindness. And we become better at it, which means the kindness begins to overflow. And that's really what we want. The comfort also begins to overflow. So it starts to come out in how you speak. Not necessarily even the words that you say so much, but the cadence of your voice. The rhythm. It just naturally overflows, so that your environment, as always, becomes very much a part of your growth and development. And then, of course, becoming comfortable and kind then matures into compassion. So the ability to see the smaller aspects of who you are more clearly, which is an incredible developmental point within a meditation practice, to see all aspects that make up who you are and bolster the smaller parts that need that attention, to recognize, to witness that it's not all perfect, and within that imperfection is actually the perfection. And like many of the concepts that we explore, this is a known fact. We all know this, that within imperfection there's perfection. But I always find it valuable to really explore through a contemplation what that even means. What is the true meaning of that imperfectly perfect? And often what I see through my contemplation is that people actually avert from perfection, because there's a misnomer that it's an unattainable goal. It's unachievable, it doesn't truly exist. But it's a misnomer, it's a mistake. It actually exists constantly. And we have been exploring this in the past few talks, that the fact that all of this is orchestrated in such a way that there's you sitting here in front of me, me sitting in front of you, that's perfection. The fact that you got here was perfection. The weaving in and out of traffic was the imperfectly perfect scenario or circumstance that you were in. But you were always grounded within perfection, were you not? That's how you made the calculation to take the right turn or the left turn. Put the pedal to the metal or take it off. all together. So the ability to do that is actually grounded in this perfect expression. How your brain organizes itself to communicate through the nervous system, to execute a task. How your nervous system communicates back to the brain. This is amazingly perfect. And as we start to rest into that experience within the meditation, we personalize it, harnessing the power that exists there at its nucleus, at its center point. For no other task than just to be within its presence. Allow the experience of the perfect sensation to completely envelop you from this inside place to this furthest outermost reach of your human experience as an individual, which is your skin. And it's a constant sensation that we feel. I go as far to say, even when you have a sensation which you could classify as not so great, it's also established from perfection. Your preferences are not the governing body over perfection. Your preferences are based upon your psychology. What you gravitate towards being pleasurable, and what you gravitate away from, which is being burdensome or painful. But that is very much personalized decision that you're making, based upon many, many factors that the perfect experience is not a part of. You can be perfectly angry. So what this means is we can use the technology that we have built inside of us and the experiences that it generates and begin to apply it to these smaller parts of who we are. So that the aspects that we sometimes wish to not even have, we push them away, say, not now, not now, not now. But what's amazing, it always amazes me, is they come back. So they're seeking attention. This is potentially why there's so many very busy therapists that exist. Because what ideally we're doing is we, as the individual experiencer of this person, we become the keen listener. But we have to have a safe place to do that. We have to really develop the how. And for thousands of years, meditation has been that safe place. Because what we're cultivating within meditation is a deepening and heightening understanding that that which we see is exactly that, just that which we're seeing. And that then we attach an emotion to it. We attach a feeling to it. But the thought itself is actually benign, it's just floating by. And then we choose at that moment what we will do with it. But in that same way, an emotion is benign. We conjure it up within the space of our inside place, and then we put it there, connecting it to the thought and saying, now this is the meaning of thought. Meditation, void of me explaining this to you, would offer that insight. And we still have an opportunity for your inside place, your own person, to provide you the reasoning, the how, and also maybe even the why. So that then we begin to establish a relationship to these experiences that keep reoccurring when we close our eyes. We give them an opportunity to express fully what it is that wishes to be said. And this is challenging. I know it's challenging. To be open and willing to listen to those smaller aspects of who you are. This is why kindness and comfort are so connected and important for the developing meditation practice. So one can come before the other. So you don't need to be kind to these aspects of yourself that you don't want to be at the moment, in the immediate. It's not necessary. Because again, even the technique of meditation, and even myself as facilitating this technique, I want to give you the space. I do not want to force. I want to see perfection as it is naturally. And your process is that perfect. But what we do want to do is develop comfort with that which we're seeing. And the reason why it is so crucially important is because you're the only one that is seeing it. Nobody else. And I believe strongly that you should not be uncomfortable or afraid of what you see on the inside. Because it doesn't need to be that way. How we develop that is through simply allowing the expression to occur and realize that what you're seeing, and even on the emotional level, it's being observed. There's always two sensations, at the very least, that we're engaging with. The one is the observer, and the other is the observed. And I'd like you to pay close attention when we're sitting in meditation tonight to the conjuring that happens within the space. This unmanifested becomes manifested within your own personal inner reality. But the observer and the position of sensation that it takes remains the same. And I'd like you to test me on that. Really observe your meditation today. That you maintain constant, and then you place on, like a garment, the emotion and the sensation connected to that in relation to thought. And then you take it off once the loop of thought is complete. So becoming comfortable with the space that is developed between you and the thinking, between you and the emotion, you and the feeling. This becomes possible because we are developing a knowing and understanding that you are not that which you are observing. So that then you can start to become comfortable, just like a networking event of some kind, or a party that you don't really know anyone. There's that awkward moment. So either we stay in the awkwardness, or we just start opening our mouth and talking and communicating, or we just loosen up and relax. So this is what we want to do, is just, we don't need to talk to anything inside, we just have to loosen up and relax a little bit. And allow everything to settle and find its place. Now from this comfort position, we can start to explore kindness. Because oftentimes the reason why an individual is not kind is because someone's pushing a button and making them uncomfortable. What is creating discomfort? Past memory of experience. That's exactly what meditation is doing, is it's allowing past memory of experience to come back up and clear out. So now it's actually in the wheel of resolution. It's becoming resolved through its exposure to the witness, to the observer. The awareness that comes from the observer is actually very purifying. It's cleansing. It has encoded within itself the rhyme and the reason in order to make sense of it all. So to recognize that there's a trigger involved is a blessing, because then we can actually clear out more quickly the past. So then the past no longer becomes so significant because you're dealing with the past hours rather than the past days or months or years. So your ability to connect to quiet becomes much more quick. Your ability to retain the connection to quiet becomes much more of a reality because there's nothing left to disturb you. A disturbed mind is actually very possible to take into no longer disturbed mind. It's just the trust bond that needs to be felt through comfort and kindness and then compassion. And oftentimes it's something that we're just not taught. So how would we know? The limit of the mind is actually sitting right here. You're at it. Press a little bit more. The edge of the mind to see what else is there. And of course, it's determined by a collective and an individual. So an individual makes a choice, which then influences the collective. So if you decide you're expanding further, that this border that you've reached is just an illusion, it's part of this Maya concept, it's magic, then you can start to progress into moving into an expanded form. What exists on the other side? And we create microcosms of that in every circumstance and situation that we're in, especially when it's pressurized. When it feels like, I just don't know if I can, then that's the edge right there. You create a ring around yourself. And then growth and development is that ability to expand. This is the job of yoga. More specifically, the meditation. It is enabling you to connect to the space and then expand from there with direction. The direction is pointed through your gaze, what you see right there directly in front of you, within that dynamic quality of stillness. But we can really rejoice in the fact that we do not have to rely on our gaze alone in order to see this direction. But the gazing experience is actually one that's felt through the totality of your nervous system, of your body. You can feel what you're looking at. You can hear what you're looking at. You can smell, you can taste what you're looking at. So all of the senses are now focused on one point, a direction. And we're moving towards that. So what needs to be strengthened through natural intelligence should in fact strengthen. What needs to be softened should in fact soften. The reason why I say that is because you've allowed it to be through your intention, through your meditation. That's what meditation is doing. Strengthening what needs to strengthen and softening what needs to soften. So what we're left with is just enjoying the sensations as they arise, with the distinct understanding that you are becoming clearer and more grounded. Not because I say so, not because the ancient writings of meditation say so, but because you are experiencing it directly. Now, at that moment of direct experience, that's when we make another choice. Whether or not we're going to continue and stay with it, or whether we're going to revert back to the more comfortable way, quote unquote, of doing things. It's a trickiness within it, because comfort goes both ways. Comfort goes into the pattern that we no longer need anymore, but it's also found in the direction that we're going. So at that moment in time, one has to decide. And what's really interesting to me, and I'm completely fascinated by it, I've spent my whole life understanding how to strengthen this, is that when we make that initial contact of realization, the connection of the brain is weak. It's not very strong. So it needs the kindness of the conscious one to stay with it. Make the decision, no, I'm actually following the direction. I am no longer going into the pattern. And if we can just do that, make the conscious decision, and go through a little bit of sensation that is attempting to pull us back in, but we just feel the sensation, get comfortable with the fact that it is happening and that it is not forever. Then we successfully push even stronger into that new connection. We much more clearly begin to understand how to follow the direction that's put in front of us. And then soon enough, all of that's just behind you. It doesn't take very long. But then there's the next piece that will come up. So we just want to strengthen the loop that is developing the ability to connect to space inside, which is authentically no longer interrupted. I had an interesting talk with an individual just on the street yesterday. And he said, quieting the mind is incredibly hard. It's impossible. And I said, no, it's very easy. But it does take a little bit of time. And when I mean a little bit, I'm being truthful. It just takes a little bit of time. 3 days, 4 days, a week of consistency. But I want to bring from your meditation seat comfort into your everyday comfort. And that's where we'll start to see great movement, is when we catch ourselves not just on the inside place, but on the outside place. Reminding ourselves again and again of this comfort, of this kindness, and of this compassion that we have towards ourselves and the effort that we're putting forth. Remembering for yourself that you put a massive amount of effort to attempt to go the correct direction that you feel is your true north, that is good for you. We have to have kindness towards that and compassion towards that, and ideally stay on board with it. Does this all make sense? Because the alternative is to yo-yo. And we all know yo-yo is fun, but only for a while. Then you got to put the yo-yo down. So from the yo-yo, then you can start creating real consistency. And with consistency comes momentum. And with momentum comes ease. Becomes very easy. And on a heightened level, it's because you're in accordance to this natural law. On a lower level, it's because you are honoring what you wish to truly do on a deep level. And on a psychological level, you are doing the right thing because now you're denying patterns that are no longer good for you. And these patterns that are no longer good for us are completely connected to the mind which is challenged, the mind which is feeling anxiety, the mind which is feeling depression. It's all connected. But every time you feel or hear the negativity, we must then apply positivity. But that sounds almost obsolete in this fast-paced world. So every time you have a negative, you replace it with a positive, 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 positive. So we reach down into, of course, the comfort of the experience within your body, which is a wonder of sensation connected to your nervous system, directly linked to the brain, which is directly linked to your mind. So now if we can remind ourselves just through being here, that every time we have a negative, instead of conjuring up some language in order to counterbalance, you just take a deep breath. And it's doing the same thing. Your breathing actually has a language. It's quite incredible. For every thought pattern, there's a subsequent breathing rhythm. This is science now saying this. And for every breathing rhythm, there's a subsequent thought pattern. So if I can override my thought with positivity, not through creating dialogue, but just through inhaling and exhaling and feeling the sensation through the nervous system. It's like taking a drink of cool water when you're hot. It feels great, does it not? And now attempt to have a string of thinking, or even just of listening to me, and then take a deep breath and see what happens. It is an impossibility, and we all know this, but we must always explore it. It is an impossibility not to pay attention to the breathing. That's how powerful it is. To recognize the genius and perfection behind your design is just to be kind. That you, your person, aspects of who you are that maybe you don't pay so much attention to, is on a 24-hour basis working in your service towards that direction that you see and that you feel. Right? Your breath always feels good. No matter how sad or angry you are, your body also feels pretty good. Better when you breathe. So now we apply this to the inner experience found within meditation. We have a body and we're sitting comfortably and we're making sure of that. So now this is just on play, constantly on play. And then we also have a constant breathing rhythm. We do 24 hours, that also feels good. And this is constantly on play. The variable is actually your thoughts. They come and go. I'm not sure why we're so attached to them. When in fact, what is the constant that stays is the space of mind itself, which also has a sensation. It's a magnetism. And it also feels darn good. So then what it is that is challenging you is only there for a moment in time, but yet it is ruling your world to some extent. Whether that thought is positive or negative, it is ruling you. When it is a messaging service, that's like calling your voicemail God. I mean, you can stretch it to that point, and it is God, right? If everything is one, then of course it is. But we do not put voice messaging up on the altar. We just say, that's my messaging service. I don't even check them. But what is constant, what is closer to a reflection for you as a tool of this universal consciousness is the space of mind. And that's what we want to develop the relationship with. This is what meditation is helping us to do, developing that relationship to the space itself, which has a sensation, which is constant. Constant, constant, constant. We have three constants connected to a fourth constant. So these three constants, body, breath, mind, we work together, create a space, one space of experience shared by the three that align with the fourth. And the fourth space is more subtle than that which you're experiencing as mind. It is actually in the space itself vibrating. And that is honing your skill of direction. Void of thought and idea, what should I do, where should I go, it doesn't really matter when we're in meditation. Because we want to quieten down all of the discussion of chatter and just simply be in the presence of silence, of stillness. Over time, developing a realization that we are that smart, that you are that perfect, that you can hear without listening to a word, that you can understand without verbal dialogue, that through the space itself there is a loop of knowing, void of language, void of thought, void of emotion. Just a pure connection to the source experience itself. Not as the end-all be-all, but as the direction for this moment in time. All of this ability comes to you as you deepen comfort. Comfort with all the experiences that you're having on the inside. They are benign. You are attaching meaning. No matter how horrible it is or how great it is, you attach the meaning. And that takes a minute or two to sort out, to be like, ooh, I'm responsible for this experience. And through kindness, I think it only makes sense to lean towards fostering goodness on the inside. But we must work with one's confidence. We must be able to say without any shadows of doubt that yes, I can do that. And that comes not through manipulation of yourself, but through proof. But now we have to be willing to accept that you're getting the proof that you need. And I say this because it's small, tiny little proofs. One by one by one by one by one they come in. They're glimmers. This is a subtlety. So imagine your voice, the authentic expression of who you are, is so sweet and humble and willing for you to go through the paces in the process to get to your development and growth. So it whispers up to you, psst, you should go this way. And that's it. That's all it says. And then you choose, yes, no. This is the freedom of will. So we want to develop the ability to say yes to those things that are really good for us. And for some, it gets incredibly intricate and close and tight. You have to listen very closely because there's a lot of noise inside there. And for others, it's so wide open and easy, it doesn't even faze them. They're not even sure why we're having this discussion right now. But there is always within the human being the swap. So we always get put into the position of feeling tight and closed. And we always get to experience the position of expanded. And that's why compassion can be a reality, because you've experienced what someone else has experienced. You've experienced the other side of your experience. So to be okay with yourself is really what I'm getting at. And to be okay with yourself is then to be okay with somebody else. You are all allowed to take as long as you want. I don't mind. I am allowed to take as long as I want. Sometimes I mind. And that's those small pieces, the work in progress, which is absolutely perfect because I'm pushing forward evolution. I am pushing it forward. That's what I'm doing. Human evolution. Again, again, again. In myself, for myself. Which then ripples out to the rest of the world. And we all do that to our own capacity and becoming increasingly more conscious. Till we hit that tipping point as a collective, and then the whole thing goes like dominoes. And then we're in a whole new way of seeing things. And then we just leave that behind us. That was now in the past. They'll write about it in the history books, how humanity could only see this far. They hit the border, and then now here we are. Some centennial celebration over time. I believe that loyalty comes up quite a bit within this process of comfort, of kindness and compassion. Because of the way that we are designed, straight from a DNA level, we imprint on things, places, people. And we call that important, and our role within that important. within that importance, we develop a loyalty. So on a subconscious level, we feel that we have to uphold this way of being, this way of seeing, for the sake of a greater body of work. For the sake of that which gave us something. The experience of your mind, even if you don't like it anymore, at one point or another gave you something that you needed, and now you're loyal to that fact. So it becomes tricky. Of course, you're a realist. Things can't be positive all the time. But the truth is that there's pure perfection within it all, as we've been discussing. So at this moment in time, maybe this conversation stimulates your mind in a certain way to recognize where loyalties are lying, that they actually don't need to exist anymore. Remember that we get obsolete in our design because of the habits that we form and the comfort that exists within them. So every once in a while we have to just wake up and drop it. So that which you feel you are loyal to, which is now expired, you can let it go. Is that existing purely on the inside, or is it existing on the outside too? That which is on the outside is linked to the inside. That which is on the inside is linked to the outside. It's only kind to let that go. It's only compassionate to see the obsolete within that relationship and then move on. In order to do that, one must establish comfort. One's own seat. This is how the spine is actually organized. On an energetic level, you have the chakras, but on the physical level, you have the nervous system and you have the endocrine system, all working together to establish different levels of experience for one to have. Enabling there to be a conscious communication between the energetic representation of a plane of experience, along with the short-term stimulation of your nervous system, and the long-term playing out of the hormones excreting chemicals and so on. So when we put that into the planes of mind, we actually have absolute representatives of that plane of consciousness, resting right here, housed within your spine. We are embodied on purpose. So nothing that we see or do is ever out of place. It is completely organized for the sake of your growth and development. And the more we begin to recognize that, the more we start to see that you are absolutely perfectly on time. I know it's audacious for me to say that and move the discussion in that way, but we have to see the logic behind it. How could it be that your life is exactly like this, not on purpose? We can look into the wisdom tradition, and they have a bit of an explanation. They say in order to hit the heights of human development, so that's this consciousness that we call enlightenment, let's say, one individual must have as many experiences as there are births to have. Now this is a rishi level of consciousness, a very high evolved individual. There's not very many. That's how I see enlightenment. So I don't ever need to even go into that conversation because I still have many experiences to have. But within that, there is a perfection. So in order to get to this place of fully realized human being, we must have as many experiences as there are, so as many births as there are experiences to have. which means that you're experiencing this for the sake of your own growth and development. All of it. And again, it's audacious. I am taking into consideration, without even looking into your past, all that you would call trauma and sadness, but also happiness and glory. Those are easy. What quickens the process is the ability of discernment. The ability to, when it's time, let go. When it's time to recognize. When it's time to become the decision maker. You are that continuously. Decisions is not my favorite thing to do. I don't know about you guys. But what's fascinating is that I make them constantly. So therefore now I love doing it. It wasn't my favorite thing to do. But what a decision means is that I hold the keys and the on and off button. So life is not out of control, it's completely in rhythm. Not because I said so, or because I'm controlling, but because I offer up. Through dynamic relaxation, I offer everything that I have to this universal form of consciousness. Which might sound like a height, but it isn't. It is just the mundane. It is the normal. It is the everyday. It is constantly here. Within every mud puddle, within every little worm, it is there. So instinctually, I want to move. I want my instincts to push me and pull me. I want to take that instinct and then finesse the expression of instinct with my intuition. So now intuition, I'm still not listening to these thoughts and emotions that we were speaking about earlier. I'm going beyond that. Remember, my thought and emotion is the messaging system. The intuition and the instinct is pure intelligence, which then will fuel thought and emotion. Thought and emotion is embedded as a psychology into the individual. The individual grows as a soul experience of self out into the expression of mind, and then experiences the experience that one needs to have without bias. Without bias is truth. When you're a child, you're just experiencing. You have no bias. You don't know good, bad, right, wrong. You're just doing. But all the while imprinting. Good, bad, right, wrong, good, bad, right, wrong, good, bad, right, wrong. And then we hit a certain point where we are developed enough cognitively that we realize, whoa, something just happened. But then in that isn't the opportunity. We go to school and develop 12 years and then beyond, same process. We hit a certain point where we say, whoa, and then we start to learn how to let go of those that are no longer needed, to strengthen those which are needed. And ideally, we do not attach ourselves as being those experiences. When we had them, good, bad, right, wrong wasn't necessarily present. It was a learned experience. And I understand me saying this, that sometimes there's horrible things that happen to people. And I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. But what I am putting forward is a path of healing. That it's now time. maybe you're that individual in this room that can hear this and is like, I got that. I hear you. It is now time. So without bias, the intelligence is flowing through us. Instinct and intuition. If we can hone the skill of listening to that, which again meditation provides, because the mandate, if there were to be one of meditation, is stillness. Void of action or activity. A point within your reality where everything stops. And we achieve that and sustain that through going beyond thought. And it's right here and now. It's in between the space. It still uses mind, it still uses breath, it still uses body to communicate, but it does not need thought. It does not need emotion. It barely even needs your personality to communicate. And we as the human beings observe this within the animal kingdom. We have theories of their minds and how it works, and void of this same thinking process that we have, but yet look at how functioning and proficient they are. So in that same way, we have access to that level of knowledge that is superior to the confusion of thought and emotion. And then rerouting it back, infusing the space of mind, the space of breath, and the space of body with its intelligent knowledge. And then allowing it to be, becoming comfortable with it. Establishing kindness, literally, and compassion for yourself as you are developing the ability to connect and communicate on this level. You are a built-in healing chamber. This body that you have is a temple. If you ever are interested in temples of Tibet or temples of Nepal or temples of India, these are the physical brick and mortar representations of what's happening on the inside. So your temple is not ever going anywhere. It is constant. It is here. And we hone and develop the ability of this healing chamber within your temple. You have everything inside that you need in order to do that. Physically, but that's more challenging to heal, believe it or not, than your mind. Why? Because this is more dense. It's more embedded in reality. It's actually hard to move. But your mind is much less embedded within this physical reality. So challenges of the mind are much easier to unwind. You see a blue dot. Show me the blue dot. Can you see that with your mind's eye? Pretty good. And now can you get the blue dot to disappear? Just let it fade away. So, you did it. Maybe some of you, your minds keep being a bit stubborn. But now, can you see me? Can you make me go away? You can't. Too physical. So that's insight in the ability that you have to heal your mind. That which is bound, wound, can be unbound, unwound. That which has manifested as matter in mind can dissolve back into its original form. So challenges, mental things that are occurring are very easy to unwind, very easy to heal, quickened by the frequency that you rest within your meditation, quickened by your ability to recognize the exact same practice within your eyes open, day-to-day wakeful state. that combination of inner-outer will then solidify a feedback loop of positivity. That connection within the brain becomes super solid and then communicative through the rest of the central and then periphery of your nervous system. The feedback loop is grounded into the physical sensations of the body and the rhythms of the breathing. These two things can override anything which thought and emotion presents. Anything which thought and emotion presents. And science is proving it more and more every single day. Yoga doesn't need any more proof. Meditation doesn't need any more proof. So I'd like you to put me to the test if you could. Actually test it out and see, what is this guy really saying? And does it actually work? Give yourself 3 months and see if there's any proof that happens. If yes, perfect. If no, give yourself another 3 months. Any questions?
Hari Om Bhagavan.
How are you, good sir?
Very, very good.
Wonderful.
Boy, you weave a really amazing Persian tapestry.
Thank you.
But the stitches are so simple.
Simple nodding.
Yeah, but it's very complicated.
Simply complicated.
You sometimes have my head spinning around so fast. I have a few things I want to ask you about. One is, it's about perfection and imperfection. And I have experiences. My first question is an experience a thought?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes and no.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. If I'm sitting on a chair in the grass on a so-called perfect day, and I'm just sitting there absorbed in the sun, and I look down on a blade of grass, and this lovely little ladybug is climbing up that blade of grass so perfectly that I'm overwhelmed by a feeling of experience, an emotional feeling of amazement. Very emotional, like, wow, that kind of amazement. And yet, that emotion, that thought we want out, but the thought comes to me, goes, wow, I have that wowness in the nowness.
We don't want it out. We just want to recognize thought and emotion for what they are.
Was that experience or thought that I had with the ladybug?
Both.
At the same time? Okay. That answers that question. Next, if you're sitting in meditation, and this is a technical question, I'm very fascinated by this question. I'm sitting in meditation, and I can become very, very absorbed in the meditation, where there is, thoughts come and go, but they slow down. You know how they?
Yes.
Very slow down. And then there's that beautiful stillness you speak of, that perfection. And a time goes by, it could be an hour or whatever, but why do I make a decision to leave that absorption? And what part of me does that? I'm
not sure what part of you. It's because it's your decision. It's not my decision.
Is it my observer or my personality or my ego or my personality?
You could tell me.
Could I tell you? It seems to have to do with mind. It's like the mind says, oh, you now have to leave this. And then you come back into thought. And you go.
And generally it's because there's a task to do.
Exactly.
Or the body is uncomfortable.
Yeah. I have to get to work.
Or you're just tired of the thought loop.
But what if there was no thought loop and you're in stillness?
I mean, these are hypothetical questions.
No, they actually happen too.
Then, of course, you could tell me because you're the experiencer.
Okay.
So you can tell me where it's coming from. I
All
mean,
right.
for me, it's theoretical.
Well, let me just see if I can. I'll just retract a past experience then. So, all right, yeah, it's true. It is my mind that says it's time to do something.
Hmm.
And so when I do that, I let go of the observer observing source.
If you wanted to stay longer, then you would deny the mind the thought of you moving.
Yes, I do that.
And then that's tapas. So tapas is that willingness to go through a little bit of discomfort for the sake of your growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that little bit of discomfort that says, no, I'm not going to move yet, it doesn't last that long, or it might persist.
Actually, it melts away.
It melts away
The discomfort becomes oblivious.
completely. And then you stay for a bit longer, and then all of a sudden it'll come back again.
Oh, yeah.
So a general rule of thumb that I follow is 3 times, I have to say I'm coming out. 3 times before I do. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
And
okay.
then on the 3rd time I said, okay. But usually those periods of time after I say, no, not quite yet, because I am the one who knows, not thought.
Okay.
I am the observer.
Okay, that's really a good technique. I
Mhm.
like that. I'll try that.
And then it becomes lighter and lighter. And that period of time when I'm sitting after I say, no, not quite yet, is generally very deep and very sweet. So the denying of oneself is actually the yoga. The going towards is considered to be boga. So leaning towards pleasure, leaning towards sensations, leaning towards things that are good to the taste buds, and taking away from the stoic qualities that you find when you are resting within that stillness. So the opposite of that is the yoga, where you start to deny the senses from that which is pleasing and pleasurable for the sake of a deeper well of experience.
For the yoking.
For the yoking, that's right.
Gotcha.
Because if we can get past that, which is the tapas, the nectar that comes from the depth of that new form of sensation is very strong.
That nectar could become an attachment too then.
It is. It is supreme non-attachment.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also offer a little a comment on perfection and imperfection?
Yes.
As you know, when I do some of my woodworking, I have been fascinated by the Japanese and their study of wabi-sabi.
It's my
Not
favorite.
wasabi, but wabi-sabi.
My favorite is that.
Yeah, so the Shakti altar holding the Nataraj is very imperfect, yet it remains perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? It has all kinds of imperfections, but yet it has a beauty within itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Japanese believes that, and this is my understanding, they can't use words to explain it. They use emotion. It is the feeling you get from Grandpa's fish and reel handle that he's had for 30 years in his hand. It's that feeling you get when you lift up that Warren gate lock. It's that feeling you get, that experiential feeling.
Yes.
That's perfect, even though it's imperfect.
That's exactly it.
I just wanted to offer that.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's
All right.
what we're doing.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for indulging me yet again.
I like it. I don't mind it at all. Any last quick questions? Let's sit. eyes closed, bring full deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space. And when I say that, I mean we want to look just beyond the moment you realize that you can see. So it's still inside. Now we want to flex the muscles of the mind. And those are real things. The mind has muscles. We want to grow the strength of the muscle to be able to retain the quality of space, which is not interrupted. It's not interrupted by anything, whether it be positive or other. Starting now. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And very slowly and gently allow the eyes to open. Something happened inside there. I'm sure that you learned something from yourself in relation to the meditative experience, which there is one, and where you are now. And then how to get to that meditative experience. The pinnacle one that they speak about in all the beautiful books. So as much as meditation is something that we do passively, it's also something that we study. So to study meditation is something true, real. It's a wisdom. There's gyan there. It's also considered svadhyaya. So svadhyaya means to study oneself. And to study means that we're taking an opportunity to look at ourselves, the observer, in relation to the experience of meditation, thought and emotion. You, the observer, are observing all of it simultaneously at one time. And we're creating an ability to work with ourselves in such a way that we establish comfort, we establish kindness, and over time, real and true compassion towards ourselves and our efforts of study that we're applying to achieve these states of meditation that they talk about in all these beautiful books. But the key is that you are doing it. So you are in the active state of achieving the same heights as the rishi. But you are in a particular birth cycle that you are experiencing this. Not just this, but exactly this. But with your intuition and with your deeper friend of instinct, we can bypass all of the chatter and just keep connecting to the direction while the chatter is happening. Understanding that the chatter becomes thinner and thinner the less you pay attention to it. Because you're all looking at me right now, and then if you all turned your backs to me, I would probably still talk for a while, and then eventually I would just stop. That is everything on the inside. You're just looking at it. So therefore it keeps going. But if you decide to look at the space, more importantly, the stillness within the space, it has no choice but to soften and fade away, because you're not giving it the attention that it needs in order to stay in a loop of life. These are transients. This is not the absolute. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. Enjoy, 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 enjoy. You are all doing amazing.